So gold's still above 2,000 an ounce. It's near an all-time high. Nobody seems to care. The miners are still trading at huge discounts. When does that mindset change? What needs to happen? How high does gold need to go before people start to care?
When people realize that it's not just your tinfoil hat, bunker building uncle that fears in fiat currency and looks at the national debt, looks at inflation, looks at all these factors and says, you know, this is a bit of a house of cards, this market. I'm gonna buy some gold to protect myself.
Kirkland Lake Discoveries Corp is a client and sponsor of PinnacleDigest.com, whose parent company owns shares and warrants of Kirkland Lake Discoveries Corp. Please read the full disclosure at the end of this video.
I'm deep in the heart of the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, a region rich in gold mining history that straddles the borders between Canadian provinces Ontario and Quebec. Home to numerous world-class gold mines and deposits, this region has beckoned risk takers and dreamers alike from all over the world. For over 100 years, prospectors, geologists, miners, and financiers have embarked on quests in this part of the world, not just for buried treasure, but for legacy, as they've delved into one of the richest gold-producing regions on the planet. And thanks in part to advancements in science and technology, the spirit of exploration beats as strong as ever here today. Since the first discoveries here in the early 20th century, this 450-kilometer long by 150-kilometer wide geological structure has produced roughly 200 million ounces of gold and counting, rivaling the prolific mining state of Nevada, America's beacon of gold production. Since 1900, roughly 120 mines have gone into production in the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, with some of the world's largest gold mines having been discovered here. From Goldcorp's Dome Mine, which produced about 17 million ounces, to the Hollinger Mine, which produced nearly 20 million ounces, to the McIntyre Mine, which produced about 10 million ounces, this is truly Canada's land of elephants. And it's produced the majority of the country's gold. You might think that after roughly 200 million ounces of gold production over the last century, that there may not be much, if any, of the precious metal left in the ground here in the Abitibi, but that's not the case. According to Visual Capitalist, the total gold content of the belt, including past production and current reserves and resource estimates, exceeds 300 million ounces, and logic suggests there will be more discoveries made in this region. This is one reason why miners, explorers, and researchers continue to get funded and remain active within this belt, while utilizing modern-day technologies to better understand the geology and the region's potential for further mineral discoveries. This area has been a key supplier of gold for over 100 years and likely will continue to be for decades to come. There are several gold mining camps within the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, but the two most productive over the last 100 years are the well-known Timmins and Kirkland Lake areas, having produced roughly 75 million ounces and 45 million ounces respectively. Bearing the namesake of the latter, I'm here today to find out exactly what one junior exploration company, Kirkland Lake Discoveries, aims to achieve within the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, and more specifically, the Kirkland Lake area within it. Currently in the exploration stage, Kirkland Lake Discoveries has a massive land position of approximately 35,000 hectares, ranking it as the largest landholder in the Kirkland Lake area. To learn more about its strategic plans, I'll be joined today by the company's chairman, Denis Laviolette, a geologist and self-described treasure hunter who's worked on 3 different continents. Most notably, Denis is the co-founder of Newfound Goldcorp, which made one of the most significant Canadian gold discoveries in recent years and saw its market cap exceed $1 billion. Drills are turning on Kirkland Lake Discoveries project right now, and Denis is on site. So let's go learn about their mission, methods of exploration, and what they hope to find in this historic gold camp. Denis, it's great to be with you. Now, finding a world-class gold deposit is hard. Whether it's the size, the grade, it's a very difficult thing to do. Now, you've done this, and quite recently with Newfound Gold. Can you tell us about your role with that company and how it all came together?
Newfoundland was a little bit interesting, but one of the things that was sort of like an undergirding theme for all of this was to be anti-dogmatic, right? What's the dogma? In Newfoundland, there's no big deposits. Everything is small, everything is potty, and so it's kind of like this dogma, this stigma. And Kirkland Lake is very much the same way. If you're not on the Cadillac main break, if you're not on the Cadillac deformation zone in the string of pearls of mines, then there's nothing to be found. And so the Blake River rocks where we're standing today, This is sort of the anti-dogmatic thing, because if you cross that on the Quebec border, there's tons of deposits in these types of rocks adjacent to the main Cadillac Larder structure. And much the same way, the most recent discovery only 5 kilometers away, the Upper Beaver. And so we're right there. In the beginning, it was all about kind of looking for these tier 1 jurisdictions, trying to shake dogma, and some of the greatest discoveries that have been made in recent times, Great Bear and Red Lake, the Vicuña district with Filo mining, they're anti-dogmatic things.
Coming back to your anti-dogmatic approach, what do you say to the skeptics who say most of the good stuff, everything's been found in Kirkland Lake and these places? What do you say to them?
In the last decade, if not 20 years, the most fantastic deposits have been outliers. They've been found in the backyard, in some semblance, in the backyard of some of these really well-known camps, adjacent to, some distance away, in rock packages that were previously dismissed, in etc. So that, I would say, you know, look at the success cases that we've seen historically in the last couple of decades. Look, deposits are getting deeper and deeper, harder to find. We're not going to trip over these things anymore. We have to push the boundaries. We have to look a new spot.
Your land position is massive, 35,000 hectares. What's behind that?
You've sort of put your mind in that mindset of a big company. If you're going to invest in something, you want there to be longevity. So the idea of a camp made a lot of sense to me. So, you know, this was very much nested in the idea of let's get a camp. We have an opportunity at bottom of the market. Let's put together a camp scale thing.
And what exploration work has been done so far? Obviously you're drilling now, you're in phase 2 of a 10,000 meter program, but this is the first major drill program though.
This is the first major one, yeah. So last fall we did a quick one, or last summer, last fall we did a quick one on the west side, just to follow up on a few unturned kind of stones that we wanted to turn because we had the permits, everything was lined up, and really nothing was going to change this certainty or uncertainty on some of those targets. It was like, well, there's one way to find out, let's drill them. And so we did a little bit of that. It's okay, we got some encouraging sniffs, but nothing that, you know, blew our minds. And our attention was really nested over here on the east side. There's a ton of potential on the west side, but the next step for that's going to be really largely geochemistry. So we have to, it's like this huge haystack, if you can imagine, and we have to sort through that with a big geochemistry sample program. So if we can blanket it with geochemistry, then we can start to understand what features matter more than others and where we should prioritize attention. As you mentioned before, it's a massive land package, which equals a massive haystack. And we have to refine where we're going to focus our time, energy, and capital.
Talk about Upper Beaver. You talk about that. You mentioned it earlier. Can you expand on that for a moment?
So Upper Beaver was the last, I will say, the last big discovery made in this area. It's not the same rocks as typically we look at. It's not hosted in the same rocks. It's in the Blake River. Again, back to the dogma. It was sort of outside of the scope of what people would typically look for. It's very big, and again, 5 kilometers away.
What initially really interested me, the government of Canada put a ton of money into this region, kind of looking at the fault lines and deeper. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. The Metals Earth program was run by MERC, and they actually put $77 million to understand the architecture of all of these big, prolific, economically significant gold endowed zones. And so this was one of the areas, Red Lake was another one, etc. So lucky for us, the transect that they did, so they did this huge seismic and MT, so it was called a magnetotelluric survey, and it's really deep penetrating. This goes down to the, you know, bowels of the earth. It goes down to the moho. Like it looks through 30 kilometers, 20 kilometers deep, and you can really see what the plumbing system is that in placed and to try to figure out what was underpinning all of this gold endowment. Lucky for us that line cuts right through our property. One of the findings from that was that there was a parallel structure to the Cadillac Larder Lake Fault Zone, and that's called the Mulven Lake Mist Lake Faults. Now, on our maps, we have them as 2 faults that are rather close together, and on that scale, when we look zoomed out on that scale of that survey, it's just showing as a second plumbing system, but it's showing the same, it's tapped into the same kind of source fluids, etc., that, you know, one could imagine. So for us right now, with Hurricane, this whole Upper Beaver lookalike thing, we haven't turned a ton of attention to following up that Mulven Lake Mist Lake Fault. I think what we need to do is do a little bit more geochemistry on that to figure out what the best spots are to target. But as we figure that out, we're working on this. And this thing is, you know, maybe we don't get there for a long time, or maybe we're doing it this summer.
So phase 1, good fish Carana. We're here at Lucky Strike. Phase 2, Hurricane.
Yeah.
How many meters for phase 2?
4,000 for phase 2. So Hurricane, we're gonna throw 4,000 meters into it. We did a ton of prospecting on it, and we saw enough. We saw enough to validate that we have to come here and poke some holes into it.
And the drills are turning right now.
Drills are turning right now. You're here, we're gonna see some core.
Let's go take a look.
All right.
We've come over to Hurricane, phase 2 of drilling. What's the goal of this program?
We've got some grab samples all over this thing. We got the gold, we got the copper, we've got the alteration, we've got all the goodies. So the goal here is to hit what they've got over at Upper Beaver. It's just to show that this Hurricane Suite, we think is the same type of thing that they've got. We just want to see if we can get those gold and copper numbers. They don't have to be barn burners, they don't have to be crazy, they just got to be there. It's a big system.
What does phase 3 look like? When are you hoping to begin? How many meters?
Phase 3, likely in the summer. There'll be some follow-up, likely on Copper King. I think we'll keep the meterage short just because it's still very preliminary. A lot more prospecting. So we didn't get enough prospecting done out here last year and in those spots. So we got to do a lot more sampling, a lot more mapping and prospecting. So there'll be a smaller program this summer, likely, you know, probably keep it under a couple thousand meters.
So you guys raised about $8 million Q2 2023. How's the Treasury right now? How are you guys sitting?
We're still sitting with about $4.5 million in cash, I think, at this exact sort of time. And so lots to get through this program. This program's gonna probably cost us around $1.5 million.
And you know, speculators, investors, when they look at these junior miners, it's always, what do you think needs to happen for a re-rate to occur, right? Is it just about hitting what?
This one's easy because we don't have to find a mine right away. We're not working in the middle of nowhere. We're in a classic camp in Canadian gold exploration. We're right there. We don't have to find, our threshold of discoveries isn't huge. We don't have to find 4 million ounces. We could find 1 million. We could find 500,000. It's still gonna matter for them.
And it's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you very, very much for coming.
Each drill turn for Kirkland Lake Discoveries is more than a search for gold. It's a continuation of the spirit of exploration that defines this Canadian gold camp. Making a mineral discovery of size and grade is far from a guarantee, but within the heartland of Canadian gold mining, the dream of doing so continues to fuel speculators, geologists, and prospectors alike. With a massive land position and a strategic plan in action, Kirkland Lake Discoveries aims to join the group of successful explorers from this legendary gold camp. Like this video and subscribe to never miss another adventure.